Hello kids, I'm Chavi Bansal. I hope you already know me. So today I'm starting with a very interesting chapter of grade 11 zoology, which is animal kingdom. So generally kids are very scared of this chapter and there are so many classification, everything. But I think this is the most interesting chapter because once you know about it, it's very easy to remember the properties. And I'll make sure at the end of the chapter, when we are done with the full chapter, you guys are having everything on your tips. Okay, so we are going to start with the animal kingdom. Now, this is the last kingdom of five kingdom classification. I hope you already know that. But before we enter into it, let's understand what is classification. Okay. Now, see, I'll give you a very easy example. So, for example, you are looking for a biology book of grade 12 in library, okay, by a specific author. So, what you are going to do is you are going to visit the library. You are going to look for the grades. You will go for the grade 12. In grade 12, you will look for biology subject. And in the biology subject, you will look for the author you are looking for, right? And then you pick up the book. This is the way that is what usually happens. Now imagine if this is not arranged in such a way in library and there is just pile of books and you have to find out the required book through that pile, what you will do? Will it be easier for you? No, it would be very different, right? Because now you have to look for each and every book and then understand where your required book is present, right? So this is what classification does. The arrangement of the things in a specific pattern so that it's very easy to locate for the specific trait, or it is very easy to remember like how and what are the basic characteristic property of each organism, right? Why I'm saying so, because there are so many animals in animal kingdom. Remembering the basic feature of each and every animal would be very difficult. But if you know the classification, you know the properties of class, like each class, then it is very easy to remember the most properties of organisms that are present, right? So what is classification? Classification is arranging the organisms on the basis of their easily observable but fundamental characteristic. This is what the classification is. Now, if I have to write down in a technical term, what does it do? It becomes easy to study the organisms, right? Second, what else it does? It helps in assigning systematic position to newly described species. Okay. So now for the species that are already known, it becomes very easy to study them, right? Now, if you remember the characteristic feature of that specific class, the organism that will belong to those class will also have those features, right? So you just have to know what organisms will belong to what class and what are the features of a specific class. Second, if there is a newly discovered species, then how you will understand and how you will place them. So it helps in arranging, assigning them the systematic position in the already established classification system. Clear? Any doubt? Now we are going to talk about this important scientist. We do not need to remember each and everything, but the scientist Aristotle, he is called as father of zoology and ancient taxonomy. So he's called as father of zoology and ancient taxonomy. Taxonomy is again classification, but this classification is not what we study now. It is an ancient taxonomy that was based on the presence or absence of blood. Second is R.H. Whittaker. He is the one who gave us 5 kingdom classification, in which animal kingdom is the last kingdom. Okay, so these two scientists are quite important, and we need to remember what they have done and what they are called for. Right? Now we are going to talk about the system of classification. System of classification. What does that mean? System of classification means, like, what is the pedigree, like what is the flow, like how the things move in the classification. So how I remember it as KPC of GS, where K stands for kingdom, P stands for phylum, C stands for class, O stands for order, family, genus, and species. Now, what is this? What are these terminologies? Why are we studying them? See, kingdom is a broad way of classifying. For example, when I told it we are going to study animal kingdom, then it included all the animals, right? But within the animal kingdom also, we need to put different stages of classification to remember stuff. So in a kingdom, there are multiple phylums. In each phylum, there are multiple classes. In each class, there are many orders are present. In each order, there are families. In each family, there are genuses, and each genus has multiple species, right? So if I go, can you see the kingdom is a very broad thing. So it is very general, and it has more organisms present in it. Whereas as I go down towards the species, it becomes very specific. And as the things become very specific, they have less organisms in it, right? For example, humans, Homo sapiens. So Homo sapiens, we belong to the kingdom animal. Then there is a phylum called as Chordata. Then in the Chordata phylum, there is a class called as Mammalia. In Mammalia, we have Vertebrata. In Vertebrata also, we are Homo sapiens sapiens. So like, this is the very basis of, this is the system of classification, like how you will put an organism, a specific organism in this complete system. That is called as system of classification. Okay. So I remember it as KPC of GS. Very easy, KPC of GS. Now, if you remember this, you do not have to remember the sequence. Okay. Now let's start with the kingdom. So we already know that we have 5 kingdom classification, which is given by R.H. Whittaker. So what are those 5 kingdom? So the first kingdom is Monera. Second is Protista. Third is fungi. Fourth is plantae. And fifth is animalia or animal kingdom. What are these? Now, these are the 5 kingdoms in which the different types of organisms are placed. So, Monera is mostly bacteria. Bacteria are unicellular prokaryotes. Protista. Protista includes unicellular eukaryotes, mostly. Fungi, it has multicellular eukaryotes. And then plantae has plants, and animalia has animal into it. Okay, so this is the very rough and very basic introduction to the system of classification, or the classification that we are going to study in animal kingdom. Fine. Next, now we understood, like, what is the system of classification, what is the different uh, uh, phylums, different kingdoms that are present, right? Now we are going to discuss about animal kingdom. So we are clear that we are going to discuss about animal kingdom. Now, what all organisms are involved in animal kingdom? All animals. But what are the traits? What are the basic features? On what basis do we classify any organism as animal, not as a plant, not as fungi, not as protozoa, not as, protista, not as monera? There has to be a characteristic feature to classify it as an animal, right? So what is that? First, animals are heterotrophic organisms. What are heterotrophic organisms? Organisms that they cannot prepare their own food, they're dependent on producers or plants or the other organism as their food source. Second, they have holozoic mode of nutrition. What is holozoic mode of nutrition? Intake of food. They ingest food through mouth. Okay, engulf food through mouth. That type of nutrition is called as holozoic mode of nutrition. Next, mostly motile. Now, you will be coming across with this terminology a lot, motile or sessile. Sessile means not movable. Means they will be attached to some surface, some substratum. So those are sessile and motile, which are movable, that can change their own location. Okay, so most of the animals, not all, most of the animals are movable, means they're motile. Next, most of the animals have nerve and sensory cells. Now, we already know that nerves, sensory cells, perceive, you observe, you take stimulus from your environment. We are aware of our environment, right? That is because of the nerve cells and the sensory cells. So this is also another feature of an animal. They are eukaryotic for sure. Because if you see the five kingdom classification, we are going towards the complexity, and animal is the last kingdom, means they are the most complex ones. So they have to be the eukaryotic organisms. Next, they are multicellular. They are multicellular organisms. So if I put it this way, they are multicellular eukaryotes that has heterotrophic mode of nutrition or holozoic mode of nutrition, mostly motile, having some sensory cells and nerve cells. So this is like the basis of classifying an organism as an animal. Fine. Are we clear with what all organisms come under animal kingdom? Now this was for kingdom. Next is phylum, right? Now this animal kingdom is classified into two categories. First is chordates. Let's go with the other one first. The first is non-chordates. The other is chordates. Now, what is this classification? Why are we talking about? See, in kingdom, after kingdom, you have to study phylum, right? Because there has to be some basis of classifying the kingdom into different phylums, right? So this is the first basic classification, chordates or non-chordates. So what is chordates? What are non-chordates? There is a thing called as notochord, which forms the skeletal system of the organism. Now, if this notochord is present, then it is called as chordates. And if it is not present, then it is called as non-chordates. Okay. So basically, there are 10 phylums under non-chordates. And one phylum, Chordata itself, is a phylum that comes under chordates. So I'm going to name that those phylums. First is Porifera. Porifera. Second is Coelentrata. Coelentrata, also called as Nidaria. Third is Ctenophora. Ctenophora. Next, fourth is, sorry, Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes. Fifth is SK helminths. Sixth is Annelida. Seven, Arthropoda. Eight, Mollusca. Ninth, Echinodermata. And 10th, Hemichordata. And then 11th, and the final phylum that comes under chordates is Chordata. Okay, so these are the, sorry, 11 phylums of animal kingdom, amongst which 10 are non-chordate and the one is chordate. Right? These name of the phylums might sound very difficult initially, but don't worry. See, for me, it's very easy. Why? Because I can see them as a Harry Potter movie, whatever they spell it, right? Those spells: Porifera, Coelenterata, Ctenophora, Platyhelminthes, SK helminths, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Hemitoidata, and Chordata. Like Echinodermata even sound like as Hatuna Matata, right? So you can relate and have such type of names in your head to remember. But you guys should remember the sequence also, because the Porifera is the simplest phylum and chordate is the most complex phylum of animal kingdom. So if you remember the sequence of the phylum's name, it would be very easy to remember the characteristic property and how the features are changing over the whole animal kingdom. Clear? Then you repeat again once with me. First phylum is Porifera. Porifera. Second is Coelenterata. Coelenterata. Third is Ctenophora. Ctenophora. Fourth is Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes. Fifth is SK helminths. SK helminths. Sixth is Annelida. Annelida. Seventh is Arthropoda. Arthropoda. Seventh is, eighth is Mollusca. Mollusca. Ninth is Echinodermata. Echinodermata. 10th is Hemichordata. And 11th is Chordata. Okay, so these are the phylums that comes under animal kingdom. Now, we are going to study each and every phylum, okay, in very much detail, but not before that, we need to understand what are the different bases on which we are classifying these, phylums. Now, we already understood, okay, why these 10 phylums are called as non-chordates and this phylum is called as chordates. But what about other these 10 phylums? Why are they different? What is the difference? So basically, there are many, reasons and many ways of classifying it. So they have different bases of classification. One second. Basis of classification. Sorry. So this basis of classification, there are so many bases of classification that helps us to classify these phylums into different these animals into different phylums. Okay. So we are going to understand what are the different bases of classification. First is level of organization. What is level of organization? What is level of organization? What does organization mean? Organization means arrangement, right? What is the level of organization? Means either in the body, is it only cells that are present? Is it only tissues that are present? Do they have organs or not? Or if they have organs, are they form an organ system or not? right? So these are the different levels of organization of the cells or the tissues or the organs or the organ system. So each organism with the increase of the complexity will have different level of organization. So the most simple one is cellular level of organization. What is cellular level of organization? They have cells. The cells have formed tissue. They are a group of cells present as the aggregate. They have not formed tissue yet. What is the difference between an aggregate of cell and tissue? See, a tissue should be of same origin, same type of cell performing same function, right? Here, they are not forming any tissue, but they are performing similar function. A group of cell present in an aggregate will be doing similar function. So they do not form tissue. Cells do have some level of division of labor. Means the task is divided. Okay, some organisms like some tasks are divided among the different group of cells. Like these cells will perform one task, the other type of cells will perform the other task, but they haven't formed any tissue yet. Okay, example. See, this is the simplest level of organization, and it should be present in the simplest phylum. And which is the simplest phylum? Porifera. So this level of organization is present in Porifera. Fine. Is it clear? Next is tissue level of organization. Tissue level of organization. Tissue level of organization. Now, the cells have formed tissue. Okay. The cells are performing same function in a group, right? And they have arranged themselves as a tissue. They are called as tissue level of organization. Group of cells performs same functions and arrange themselves in the group of tissue. And the example should be the next level of the phylum. After Porifera, we have Coelenterata and Ctenophora. These two phylums have tissue level of organization. Ctenophora and Coelenterata. Clear? These are the two phylums that has tissue level of organization. Next is organ level of organization. Next is organ level of organization. Organization. In this, what happens? The tissues have arranged themselves in the form of organs. But the organs, in between the organs, there is no coordination. Okay, lungs are working separately, stomach is working separately, small intestine is working separately. So there are organs formed, but the organs are not coordinated with each other. Okay, such level of organization is called as organ level of organization. So the tissues have arranged in the form of organ. There is no coordination between the organs. So the next phylum amongst the series, which has the organ level of organization, is Platyhelminthes. So Platyhelminthes is the only phylum which has organ level of organization. Okay. Next and the last level of organization is organ system level of organization. organ system level of organization. Now in this, the organs are present and they are coordinating with each other while working. Like for example, lungs, kidney, heart, small intestine, they all are working in a coordinated fashion, even in our body, right? So we also have organ system level of organization. This is the like highest level of organization. So this is the most complex one, and humans being the most complex one will also have organ system level of organization. So in this, organs work in a well coordinated manner. They form organ systems, and each organ system performs specific physiological function. So this is the most complex and the highest type. All the phylum, starting from SK helminths till Chordata, all will have organ system level of organization. So basically, sometimes the NEET question comes, in which phylum the organ system level of organization was found. Then it is going to be SK helminths, because this is the first phylum that has organ system level of organization. So this is the first basis of classification, which is level of organization. Let's have a quick review. The level of organization has 4 levels: cellular, tissue, organs, and organ system. Cellular being the most simple form, and organ system being the most complex form of the level of organization. Now, in cellular, there are cell aggregates that has not formed the tissue yet, but they show some level of division of labor, right? The only phylum that belongs to cellular level of organization is the first phylum, Porifera. Next is tissue level of organization. In this, the group of cells, the similar cells performing the same function, they have formed the tissues. Okay, they have arranged themselves in the form of tissues, and this is called as tissue level of organization. The next two phylums, Ctenophora and Coelom, are the phylums that has tissue level of organization. Third, organ level of organization. Now, the tissues have arranged themselves in the form of organ, but the organs are not working coordinatedly. Means each organ is working independently. So that level of organization is called as organ level of organization. The only phylum that has organ level of organization is Platyhelminthes. The fourth one is organ system level of organization, which is the most complex one, and it is present in all the phylums starting from SK helminths to Chordata. In this, the organs are well developed and they're well coordinated with each other. So they form organ system, and each organ system performs one physiological function, and that is what organ system level of organization is. Okay. The second, we are going to start with the next level of organization, next basis of classification, which is symmetry. Now let's understand what is symmetry first. Okay. Symmetry means, for example, if you have something, for example, this is a paper or something. Now, what can I do is, can I say it is symmetrical? Like, for example, it has, now, can I say it is symmetrical, right? Because there is, if I divide it into two, it halves, both the halves are identical to each other, right? Means there is one plane which can be passed through it, which can divide it into identical halves, then it is called as symmetrical. Now, for example, this is something. Now, even if I pass the plane like this, there's anything, there's no way which will divide into two identical halves, right? So this type of things are called as asymmetrical. Okay. Same way in the organisms also, we have some organisms that have symmetry. We have some organisms that do not show any symmetry. So those organisms that do not show symmetry are called as asymmetrical. Okay. Before that, let's write down what is symmetry. Symmetry. If the body of the organism can be divided into two parts that are identical, then by passing one or more planes, then it is going to have symmetry. For example, the human body. I'm going to drawing a very lame human body right now. But this also, if I pass a plane from here, it will divide the body into two identical halves, right? Left and right. This is also a symmetry. Okay. So whenever there is any plane that is able to pass through the central axis or that is passed through the body, which will divide it into two identical halves, then organism or that thing has the symmetry. Okay. Now, on the basis of this presence or absence of symmetry or the type of symmetry, we can classify the organisms into three categories. The first is asymmetrical. Asymmetrical means no symmetry. If no symmetry, then I say none of the plane and none of the planes is possible, which can be passed through the body, which will divide into two identical halves, which will divide the body into two identical halves. There is no such plane, then it's asymmetry, right? So no plane can divide the organism into two identical halves. Such type of symmetry is called as asymmetrical, and the organisms that are asymmetrical are mostly porifera. Mostly porifera. So asymmetry is again a primitive trait which is present in porifera. Next is radial symmetry. Radial symmetry means what? In radial symmetry, there is more than one plane. For example, let's take the example of a ball. So there is this plane also, there is this plane also, this plane also, this plane also. There are more than one plane which is able to divide the body into two identical halves. Then such type of symmetry is called as radial symmetry. Okay. So radial symmetry is when more than one plane passing through the central axis divides the body into two identical halves, and they are called as radial symmetry. Example, there are certain porifera that have that symmetry. For example, cypron. This is a porifera that has radial symmetry. Other than that, Ctenophora, Ctenophora cylindrata. And there is a phylum called as Echinodermata, right? Echinoderms, adult. In them, the radial symmetry is present. Okay, so what are the three phylums? Cylindrata, Ctenophora, and Echinoderms. In Echinoderms, it's adult, and other than that, in Porifera, there is one exception called as Cycon, which also have radial symmetry. Right? Third is bilateral symmetry. Humans have bilateral symmetry. Means there is only one plane that can pass through the central axis and which will divide the body into two identical halves, left half and the right half. That type of symmetry is called as bilateral symmetry. Okay. When body can be divided into left and right half. This type of symmetry is called as bilateral symmetry. Example starts from Platyhelminthes to chordates. It includes echinodermata, but then larval stages, not the adult. Okay. So this is the symmetry. Let's have a quick revision. So what is symmetry? Symmetry is when there is any plane on passing it through the body. It divides the body into two identical halves. Then the organism is called as symmetrical. And if there is no such plane, it is called as asymmetrical. So asymmetry is the characteristic property of most of the porifera. right? Now in symmetrical also there are two categories, radial and bilateral. In radial symmetry, there are multiple planes. Like for example, you have a cake, right? You can cut it this way, you can cut it this way, you can cut it this way, this way. Anyway, if you cut it, it will give you two identical halves, right? So there are multiple planes which on passing through the body divides the body into two identical halves. Such symmetry is called as radial symmetry. So one porifera, that is exception called as cycon, has radial symmetry. Then Ctenophora and Coelenterata phylums also has radial symmetry. And the Echinodermata adults also has radial symmetry. Okay. Third is bilateral symmetry. In bilateral symmetry, there is only one plane that passes through the central axis. And when it is passed, it divides the body into left half and the right half. That type of symmetry is called as bilateral symmetry, and it is present from Platyhelminthes to chordates. Clear? Next is germ layers. The next basis of classification is germ layers. Now, what are germ layers and how does it forms a basis of classification? What do I mean by germ layers here? So, for example, we'll see with the process of fertilization itself. So, this is an egg, this is a sperm. Okay. After fertilization, it forms a zygote. Right? Now, what happens? This zygote develop into an embryo. Okay. This embryo, it forms a different layer of cells inside, which these layers are called as germinal layers. And they are of three types: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Okay. So these are the three germinal layers. What are the germinal layers? The layers which are formed in embryo. And they are the ones that are going to give rise to each and every organ, tissue, or the cell of the body. Like eyes, our lungs, our skin, our heart, everything is formed from these three layers. These are called as germinal layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. So if I'm going to draw the structure that will have these three layers, it is going to look like something like this. This is called as gut, our alimentary canal. It starts from mouth till anus, right? So that gut is there. This is body wall. So the body wall is lined with the layer of cells called as ectoderm. This is our ectoderm. Next layer of cells is, this is mesoderm. The middle layer is mesoderm. And then around this body wall, there's a third layer of cells called as endoderm. So these are the three layers which are later going to form each and every organ, tissue, and cell of the body. The organism can be of two types. They can be diploblastic and triploblastic. What is diploblastic? If they have only two germ layers, means they have only ectoderm and endoderm. There is no mesoderm. Okay. Instead of that, there is another layer. Instead of mesoderm, there is another layer called as mesoglia, which is not made up of cell. Okay, it is just made up of non-living material, but there is no mesoderm. And triploblastic, they have three germ layers. All the three: ecto, meso, and endoderm. So the one I have drawn here is an example of a triploblastic organism. Now, how the diploblastic organism is going to look like? Similar, but it just has two layers. This is our ectoderm. This is our gut wall, endoderm. And in between ectoderm and endoderm, there is a mesoglia, which is made up of non-living material. Ectoderm, mesoglia, endoderm. Mesoglia is formed of non-living fibrous tissue, fibrous material. Okay, this is what a diploblastic organism look like. Now, the diploblasticity or the presence of two germ layers is characteristic property of which phylum? Diploblastic organisms are Porifera, Coelenterata, and Ctenophora. These three phylums are diploblastic, and after Platyhelminthes, everything is triploblastic. Okay, this is the germ layers. So let's have a quick revision. What are germ layers? Germ layers are the layers of the cell which is present in embryo. And they are of three types: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And these three germ layers are only going to give rise to all the organ cells, tissues, and system of the body. Okay. So now the organism can be of two types on the basis of presence of these germ layers. They can be either diploblastic or triploblastic. In diploblastic, the mesoderm is not present. They have either ectoderm or endoderm. And instead of mesoderm, there is another layer called as mesoglia, which is not made up of cell. It is made up of non-living material. Okay. So the phylum that has diploblastic level of diploblastic, they are Porifera, Coelenterata, and Ctenophora. Whereas triploblastic, all the three germ layers are present: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And this is present in from the phylum Platyhelminthes to Chordates. Clear? This is the third level of organization. Fourth is Coelom. Now, what is this thing? See, coelom is something which is present in a triploblastic organism. Okay, coelom means body cavity. Now, just imagine in our body we have the full alimentary canal starting from mouth and anus. But other organs, where are they present? They are present in a body cavity, right? So we have a body wall, we have a gut wall, and in between the body wall and the gut wall, there is some cavity present where all the organs are present. Our body, lungs, heart, uh, kidney, and all these are present in a cavity, right? So that cavity is called as coelom. So the organisms can be classified on the basis of absence or presence of coelom. So to make sure that organisms are properly classified, the coelom is Coelom is used as one of the basis of classification. Okay. Now, the problem with coelom is that it can only be present in triploblastic organism. So, organisms that are diploblastic, that will not have coelom. So, Porifera, Coelenterata, and Ctenophora, they are acoelomate, means no coelom. Okay. But now, there is another condition also for coelom to be present. Before that, let's write down what is coelom. The body cavity present between the body wall and gut wall. This is first condition for coelom. Second condition, it should be lined by mesoderm. From all the sides, it should be lined by mesoderm. Okay, so that cavity is called as coelom. Now, on the basis of presence, absence of coelom, the organism can be of three types: acoelomate, that does not have the coelom; pseudocoelomate, that has the coelom, but that is not true; and coelomate. Now, what's the difference? See, we saw how the triploblastic organism look like, right? So now we are going to discuss about the triploblastic acoelomate. So how will it look like? Body wall, gut wall, ectoderm, mesoderm, and then endoderm, right? Ectoderm, mesoderm, and then endoderm. There is no cavity present. You have the body wall, you have the gut wall. That is acoelomate. Now in pseudocoelomate, there is a body wall, there is a gut wall. Our ectoderm is present. Our endoderm is present. And then there is a cavity. This is the cavity, and mesoderm is present in small pouches. This is sorry. This is endoderm, and these are the mesoderm in small pouches. Means there is a body cavity which is present between the body wall and the gut wall. First condition is satisfied, but the second condition is not satisfied. Means it is not lined by the mesoderm. That's why they are called as pseudocoelomate. Okay, and the coelomate, how do they look like? Are ectoderm, okay, then this is our gut wall. In gut wall, we have endoderm. Now there is a body cavity present, which is lined by mesoderm. This is mesoderm. This is mesoderm. This is body cavity. This is mesoderm, ectoderm, and endoderm. These are coelomate organism. Means they have the true coelom. Means the coelom is present within the body wall, in between the body wall and the gut wall, and it is also lined by mesoderm around all the parts of it. Right. So these is coelomate organism. Now, so what are acoelomate? Acoelomate is Porifera, Coelenterata. Actually, they does not even classify as coelomate or acoelomate, but in case the question comes, then they are acoelomate. Ctenophora, and the most important one is Platyhelminthes. So Platyhelminthes is the only phylum which is triploblastic. Means all the three germ layers are present, but still it's acoelomate nature. Okay. So the structure that we have drawn is Platyhelminthes. Next, pseudocoelomate. It is only and only a phylum SK helminths. The only phylum that has pseudocoelom is SK helminths. Very, very important. And then starting from Annelida till Chordata, all are coelomate. Okay. So this is what our next level of organization, sorry, our next basis of classification is coelom or body cavity, which is either present or absent. If it's present, they are called as either pseudocoelomate or coelomate, or if it's absent, they are called as acoelomate. Now, what is the condition for coelom? It is the body cavity that should be present between the body wall and the gut wall. Second, it should be lined by the mesoderm, right? So in pseudocoelomate, the coelom is present, but it is not lined by the mesoderm. Instead, mesoderm is present in small pouches. Okay, so the only phylum that has the pseudocoelomate is SK helminths, and the only phylum which is actually acoelomate and is triploblastic is Platyhelminthes. Other than that, from Annelida to Chordata, we have coelomates. Clear? Any doubts so far? First, issue of classification is body plans. The fifth is body plan. Now, what is body plan? Now, see, the point is, we are talking about the gut wall and all, but do we know that there are different type of body plan also present? What is body plan? Like how the things are placed in the body. Okay, so we have three different body plans. First is cell aggregate, where there is just the aggregation of cell. Second is blind sat, and third is tube within tube body plan. Okay. Now we are going to deal with them in detail. So first is cellular level. Next is body plan, right? So what would I write about for body plan? how the body parts and different arrangements looks like during the development of embryo. Okay, so they have first cell aggregate. Again, cluster of cells which will be present within the rudimentary differentiation, but then they are not going to form the tissues. This is similar to cellular level of organization. Cell aggregate is cluster of cells with rudimentary differentiation but not organized in the form of tissue. Example is sponges. Sponges is the other name for Porifera. We'll deal that in detail, like why they're called as sponges, what is Porifera in detail, but later. Okay. Next is blind sac plan. Blind sac plan looks like this. Like they have one opening and then there is no other opening. The other end is blind, is there is no opening. Means one single opening that is going to act as both mouth and anus. Okay. So only one opening and that opening is going to act as both mouth and anus. Okay. So such type of organisms that have blind sac plan, they are tend to have incomplete digestive system. Why incomplete? For digestive system to complete, there should be two openings. One as a mouth, the other as anus. If there is only one opening that act as both mouth and anus, then they have incomplete digestive system. Example, cylindrates and platyhelminthes. Okay. Third is tube within tube plan. What does that mean? For example, there is a cylinder and there is another cylinder in it. Same way, this is our body wall and this is our duct. So it has two openings. One act as mouth as the other act as anus. Okay. So they have two openings, one as mouth and the other as anus. So they have complete digestive system. Okay. Starting from SK helminths to chordate, they have tube within tube plan. Now, tube within tube plan also, their organism can be classified as deuterostomes and protostomes. What are deuterostomes? In deuterostomes, anus is formed first, okay, and then mouth is formed. So, such organisms, anus is formed first and mouth later. Such are called as deuterostomes, whereas protostomes, mouth is formed first and then anus is formed. Such organisms are called as protostomes, okay, or the plan is called as protostomic plan. What is the example of protostomes? We have SK helminths, we have mollusks, we have arthropods and annelida. Other than that, echinodermata, hemipodata and chordata has are deuterostomes. Echino, hemi, and chordates. They are deuterostomes. It means in them, the anus is developed first and mouth is developed later. Clear? So this is what our body plan is. Let's have a small quick revision. In our body plan, there are three levels. There are different kinds of plans. One is cell aggregate plan, second is blind sac, and third is tube within tube. In cell aggregate, there is no tissue formation, just the aggregate of cells are present. Right? That type of plan is called as cell aggregate plan. It is present in Porifera. Then blind sac plan, there is one single opening, and one single opening acts as both mouth and anus. So when there is one single opening, it is called as incomplete digestive tract. It is present in coelentrates, ctenophores, and platyhelminthes. Next is tube within tube plan. Now, tube within tube plan is like one cylinder, and then there is a smaller cylinder inside. So the outer cylinder is our body wall, and the smaller cylinder inside is our gut. Right? So it has two openings. One act as a mouth, and the other act as a anus. So when there are two openings, it is called as complete digestive system. Now, two openings also, what developed first on that basis, the organisms can be of two types, deuterostomes and protostomes. Protostomes are the ones in which mouth is developed first and anus is developed later. In deuterostomes, anus is developed first and mouth is developed later. We are deuterostomes. Chordates are deuterostomes. Okay, this is what body plan is. Next is segmentation. Next basis of classification is segmentation. Now, what is segmentation? See, division or differentiation of the body into different segments or portion is called as segmentation, right? It can be of two types: metameric segmentation, true metameric segmentation, and pseudo metameric segmentation. So, the segmentation, division or differentiation of the body into distinct portions called as segmentation. It is of two types: metameric segmentation. Second is pseudo metameric segmentation. Pseudo metameric segmentation, it only occurs in tapeworm. Tapeworm is a type of platyhelminthes. We'll be dealing with it later, but it has pseudo metameric segmentation. Now, what is metameric segmentation? Means true segmentation. What is true segmentation? See, the body divides externally and internally, and the division corresponds to each other. That type of segmentation is called as true segmentation. At least one organ repeats itself serially. Means at least, and this repetition should be of embryonic origin. It should not be otherwise. Okay. And in this external segmentation corresponds to internal segmentation. Okay. So what are the examples and what are these segments called? These segments are called as metameres. Okay. There are three phylums only that has it: Annelida, Arthropoda, and Chordata. Okay. So Annelida, they have both external and internal segments. Arthropoda has only external and Chordata has only internal segmentation. Like us, we are also chordates, right? We have our ribs. Ribs are serial repetition of the same thing, right? Ribs we have, you know, blood vessels, nerves, vertebrae. All these are what that makes the segmentation. Okay. In this, they have coordination in between the segments. Okay. That is metameric segmentation. Now, what is pseudometamerism? In pseudometamerism, if you see the tapeworm, this is something like this is his mouth, and then there are different segments forming, right? These segments are not of embryonic origin. Okay, these are called as proglottids, and they are not of embryonic origin. They are just budded off from the neck region. Okay, so these segments are only external. Fine, and there is no coordination between the segment. Like each body segment works as a single unit. The one is doing something, the other one is doing something else. There is no coordination between them. Okay, so this is called as pseudometamerism. This occurs only in tapeworm. The segments are called as proglottids. Okay, and they are not embryonic and are budded off from the neck region. Okay, they are external only. No coordination between the segments. Each segment works as a single unit. Okay, this is called as pseudometamerism. So what is segmentation? Then there is a division or differentiation of the body part serially into different portions. It is called as segmentation. There are two types, metameric and pseudometameric segmentation. Metameric segmentation, at least one organ or one part repeats itself serially. Okay, and there is coordination between the segments, and the external segmentation corresponds to the internal segmentation also. And the three phylums that has it is Annelida, Arthropoda, and Chordata. Annelida has both external and internal. Arthropoda has only external segmentation, and chordates, we have internal segmentation. Our vertebrae, our nerves, our blood vessels are serially repeated, right? That is called as metameric segmentation. There is coordination between the segments. Okay. Now, what is pseudometameric segmentation? These are not embryonic of origin. First. Second, they are just budded off from the neck region in the tapeworm, and they do not have any coordination. They work as one single unit, one segment worked as a single unit. That is called as pseudometameric segmentation. Fine. This is our sixth basis of classification called as segmentation. Next is notochord. We already did this while discussing the classification between the chordates and the non-chordates. This is the same thing. This is notochord, which forms the supporting axis of the body, and it is mesodermal in origin. Okay, so it is the one that is going to form the structural framework of the body. So if it is present, then it is called as chordates. If that is not present, it is called as non-chordates. So I'm not repeating it here. Okay. Eighth is circulatory system. Now, circulatory system, it can be of two types. Means open circulatory system and closed circulatory system. Now, what happens in closed circulatory system? Ours is closed circulatory system. In us, what happens? This is one blood vessel. It brings the blood. That blood flows through the tissue in the form of vessels, and that blood is collected by the veins or veins, venules, and all that, right? So there is no direct contact between the cells and the blood. Blood is always within the vessel. Is it either it's artery, either it's arterioles, capillaries, veins, venules, anything, but it is always in vessel. There is no direct contact of the blood. Okay, so no direct contact of blood and cells. They are always in vessels, and exchange takes place through diffusion. Whereas in open circulatory system, there will be big blood vessel that will bring the blood, but then blood will flow. There will be certain cavities called as lacunae or sinuses. These are the cavities where the blood will come in open and the cells will directly take bath in the blood. That type of system is called as open circulatory system. Blood comes in lacunae or sinuses and cells directly take part in blood. Okay, this is called as open circulatory system. Our last is development. Now, how does the development from the zygote to the embryo to the adult stage takes place? Either it can be direct development or it can be indirect. In direct development, what happens? The young ones directly give rise to the adult. The young ones look similar to the adult, right? That type of young one give rise to adult. They both look similar, right? In indirect development, there is a separate larval stage. Okay, so young one will give rise to larva. Larva will give rise to adult. And larva and adult are dissimilar. They do not look similar. Like for example, tadpole. Tadpole is a larva of a frog, right? The frog is way too different from the larva, right? So this is what is indirect development. There can be multiple larval stages also. There can be single larval stages also. It depends upon the phylum to phylum and organism to organism. Okay, so this is our last basis of classification called as development. So these are the 9 bases of classification. On them we classified the phylums into 11 phylums in animal kingdom. Let's just have a quick revision of what does it say. First is level of organization. We have 4: cellular, tissue, organ, and organ system level of organization. Second is symmetry. Symmetry is, we have 3 types: asymmetrical, radial symmetry, and bilateral symmetry. Third is our germ layers. Okay, germ layers, we have 3 germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Organisms that have 2, they are called as diploblastic. That have all the 3 called as triploblastic. Fourth is our coelom. Okay, coelom, it is present in some, it is absent in some. It is absent, they are called as acoelomate. If it's present, they can be pseudocoelomates or coelomates. Pseudocoelomates, they do not, the coelom is not lined by the mesoderm. Fifth is our body plan. Body plan is, we have 3 body plans: cell aggregate, blind sac, and tube within tube plan, right? Then is our, with tube within tube plan also, we have 2 types of organisms: deuterostomes and protostomes. And then it comes our segmentation. Segmentation, we have metameric segmentation and pseudometameric segmentation. Pseudometameric segmentation is present in tapeworm only. Next is our notochord. If it's present, they are called as chordates. If it is absent, they are called as non-chordates. It's a hollow tube-like structure which is mesodermal in origin and give rise to the skeletal system of the body. Next is circulatory system. It can be of 2 types, open and closed. In open circulatory system, cells actually takes part in blood. There is direct contact between the blood and the cells, and the blood comes in spaces called as lacunae or sinuses. In closed circulatory system, there is no direct contact between the cells and the blood. Blood is always in a vessel, and from there only exchange takes place. And our last basis of classification is development, which is direct or indirect. In direct development, there is no larval stage. The young one looks similar to the adult. Okay, in indirect development, there is a separate stage called as larval stage, and the larval stage and the adult, they are totally different from each other. There can be one larval stage, there can be multiple larval stages. Okay, is it clear? I hope this is very much clear to all of you. This is very easy, which is the basis of classification. And on this basis, if you remember this, we will be able to do so many, like you yourself will be able to tell me so many questions about the phylum. For example, if I ask you guys, what is Porifera? At least you'll be able to tell me what it is. Porifera has indirect development, then it has, they do not have any circulatory system as such because they have cellular level of organization. They are asymmetrical mostly, except cyclone, which is radially symmetrical. Then they're non-chordates, right? And they do not have any kind of segmentation. They have cell aggregate body plan, and they are acoelomate in nature. They are diploblastic, and they are they are asymmetrical except cyclone, which is radially symmetrical, right? So these characteristics, when I asked you about Porifera, you already know. Now, if when we are going to start Porifera, at least these things, these some 10 parameters, we will be very much clear about, we will be very much aware of it, right? I hope this is clear. If you have any doubts, please let me know. And if you like the session, please subscribe the channel and share it with your friends as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.